How's your garden?
Growing.
Mine too.
So dependable. Gardens go on growing.
Yes, indeed they do.
I tell you, I love vegetables.
It's true. I love them too.
Plant a radish, get a radish, never any doubt. That's why I love vegetables, you know what you're about.
Plant a turnip, get a turnip, maybe you'll get two. That's why I love vegetables, you know that they'll come through.
They're dependable,
They're befriendable,
they're the best pal a parent's ever known. While with children,
it's bewildering. You don't know until the seed is nearly grown just what you've sown.
so plant a carrot,
Get a carrot,
not a Brussels sprout.
that's why I love vegetables, you know what you're about.
Life is merry
If it's very vegetarian, a man who plants a garden is a very happy man. Hey, plant a beanstalk, get a beanstalk just the same as Jack. Then if you don't like it, you can always take it back.
But if your issue doesn't kiss you, then I wish you luck. For once you planted children, you're absolutely stuck.
Every turnip green, every kidney bean, every plant grows according to the plot. While with progeny,
It's hodgepodgeny,
for as soon as you think you know what kind you've got,
it's what they're not.
so plant the cabbage, get a cabbage, not a sauerkraut. That's why I love vegetables, you know what you're about. Life is merry if it's very vegetarian. A man who plants a garden is a very happy man. A vegetarian.
Very merry
The Fantastics, Plant a Radish. Welcome once again to the Radical Imagination. I'm your host, Jim Vrettos, and I'm a sociologist who's taught at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and Yeshiva University here in New York. Sagaponack is a beautiful rustic village on the eastern edge of Southampton town in eastern Long Island. Once a land of continuous farms from the dunes to Montauk Highway and beyond. Its name, Sagaponack, comes from the Shinnecock Indian Nation, word for land of the big ground nuts. The predominant crop grown by the farmers who first settled the area in 1656 were potatoes, and many of the village's huge estates were built on former potato fields. It has a year-round population of give or take 325 people. The zip code is the most expensive one in the country. It has the most expensive property market and summer community in the United States. It also has one of the last remaining active one-room schoolhouses in New York State, not surprisingly called the Little Red Schoolhouse. The junk bond dealer Ira Renner built the largest inhabited home in America in the 1990s on many of these former potato fields. His $250 million property has 110,000 square feet of house on 63 acres of prime beachfront. In 1998, the Environmental Protection Agency placed his business holdings 10th on the list of the nation's largest environmental polluters. He's just one of the many financial Wall Street wheeler dealers who migrate there for the summer and mingle with the locals, the A-list Hollywood and television types, the politicians and prominent public figures, professionals from a myriad of diverse fields, artists, musicians, all manner of creative souls. World-class writers such as the conservationist, naturalist Peter Matheson, iconic novelists Kurt Vonnegut, George Plimpton, Truman Capote and Joseph Heller, among others, made Sagaponack home and were inspired by the incredible natural beauty they found there. In the middle of the village, on Sag Main Street, 3 or 4 miles from the Renner Estates, homage to ego and greed, you'll find the Foster family farm and Marilee Foster's farm stand. A handcrafted wooden sign calling on freeing the indigenous activist Leonard Peltier introduces you to the stand and the world of the Foster family. Her cat Mustard often greets you or is curled up next to some of the most incredible vegetables you'll ever see and taste. Friends call her stand a vegetable boutique. She calls it an outrageously fancy display of odd but lovely and delicious varieties. Green zebras and Mr. Stripey tomatoes, for example, shown off in hand-thrown pots from her own kiln. Marilee is a fifth-generation family farmer whose family has roots in the area that goes back 300 years. She's a graduate of the Little Red Schoolhouse, spent 2 years at East Hampton High School and 2 more at the Putney School in Vermont, which emphasized hard work and farm chores. She graduated from Rhode College in Wisconsin, where she focused on ceramics and English. She sees the land and the sky as it used to be. Fields on her hands, the dirt that has kept her family fed for generations, and hears the spring peepers that serenade along the fringes of Sag Pond, just a few hundred yards west of her home. She's an accomplished artist and writer, author of Dirt Under My Nails, An American Farmer and Her Changing Land, which weaves observations about farm chores, weather, nature, family, and local history, and a commentary on life in her beloved Sagaponic. I'm so happy to have met her and become a regular at the farm stand. I also can't thank her enough for her enormous patience with me, putting up with and explaining to this city boy his never-ending silly but sincere questions about the vegetables and all that you find at her incredible stand. Welcome, Marilee Foster, to the Radical Imagination.
Thanks.
It's really great to have you here. And I know you don't come in to the city that much, so I'm really honored and blessed, and our audience is so thankful for you being on and telling us a little bit about this incredible farm and the history of your family there. So tell us a little about what you've been doing and how you've survived and are creating so much happiness and wonderful contentment among people who come visit your farm.
That's a difficult question because it's broad,
Yeah.
but I think that in short, it's kind of an old-fashioned thing to approach people through their stomachs, but it's almost an easy mark when you can have access to the vegetables and the environment we have on the east end of Long Island for growing. I wasn't sure I would be a farmer, but after growing up and then having a few rough years after college there, did I decide that I thought it was a lifestyle and a pursuit worth going after. I try to bring creativity into it, but everyday farming is actually pretty creative.
Radical imagination you use in what ways? In creating and helping develop and grow these incredible vegetables? Yeah.
So in some case, farming is, you never know what you're going to walk into anywhere, any day. But farming, you're dealing with a lot of mechanized things, you're dealing with weather, and you're dealing with employees. And so you're often changing plans while you're rolling through them. And so I think a lot of creativity goes into problem solving. And in some ways, farming is just a series of problems that exists between a seed and a harvest. And there's opportunities in those problems, but you're dealing with everything from weather that's too cold to too hot, too wet to too dry. And so it's a full-time, very full-time job, just farming alone. And I think the other creativity I try to bring into it is maybe what you're referring to is maybe the look of my farm stand and a little bit of the styling that goes on there.
Right.
I think because I worked in visual arts, when I decided to swing into being a full-time farmer, I took a little bit of that sensitivity with me, and I want people to see the beauty of vegetables and the beauty of farmland.
We're going to have some stills that we're going to be showing
Yeah.
while you're talking here about it.
Okay.
And what makes this land so special and so rich? Tell me about that soil.
Yeah, so it probably goes back to about 10,000 BC with a glacier that scraped across New England, removing a lot of the topsoil from New England, and then basically stopping running aground at Long Island. So we have in Sagaponack something called Bridgehampton loam, and one of the distinguishing features is the depth of the topsoil there. And then on top of it, so it's flat land, well-drained land, and where we are for Long Island, there's a pretty good clay content which holds on to water. So if you have a pretty long growing season, so it won't become dehydrated quickly and stress your plants. Of course, it can hang on to water too much too, which is some of the problems we're seeing now with some of our changing environmental conditions. But historically, Sagaponack was very good for growing potatoes specifically. Proximity to the ocean means it's a little cooler, which potatoes actually like. But there's a history of farm agricultural practices, I think, on the east end of Long Island. So there's always been, although again, another problem with our changing environment, but there's always been practices which assure cover cropping and sort of your upkeep of the land season after season.
Short cover cropping, what is that now?
So cover cropping is a practice of after you've finished your harvest, you're going to plant a blanket. So it could be an oat crop, it could be a rye crop, or it could be something we call green manures, which help fix nitrogen and bring organic matter back into the soil. So it's kind of like you work your soil all summer long, and then in the winter it should kind of be at the spa. That's the best way to.
So you use organic practices, is that?
So some of our
correct?
farm, so for my farm stand, my roadside stand, the majority of what I produce there is organic. I think we've discussed this, that organic, there's a standard of agriculture, which you go through a national program, and it's administered by states, which is organic certification. I am not a certified organic farmer. I did it for a while, tried it out. As a farm of my size that's doing a lot of direct marketing, it's really better and easier to have a relationship with my customers of I can tell them what my practices are. Is a lot of paperwork, is I guess what I'm saying, to adhere to the program. And for something my size, where I really have a lot of one-on-one, it's fun.
There's your farm stand.
Oh, yeah.
There it is. And tiger spuds?
Yeah. So that goes back to the other part of our farm, which is in a way more historic and much larger, and I think in some ways more captivating.
There's another shot.
Yeah, that's a nice picture.
It is. It is. Look at that.
Beautiful.
Wow.
But the tiger spud, that's something I do seasonally, which is make potato chips.
And look at this.
That's a sweet potato. I think it's about 5 pounds. Sweet potatoes are really pretty easy to grow, and so they will get really big in our soil for sure.
How big is this?
It was probably about 5 pounds. That one.
5 pounds.
Yeah, 4.5 maybe.
And this is another shot. Pumpkins and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the
Is that
winter squash.
Winter squash.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting hungry looking at it right now. It's pretty much kale.
Kale.
Kale's
healthy.
Kale and Brussels sprouts.
There's your free Leonard Peltier.
And sign,
you've chosen to have that on there.
Yeah.
As what?
So going back maybe 10 years, I was reading Peter Matheson's book, In the Spirit of Crazy Horse, which chronicles really the broken treaties that the U.S. government has made with the Native Americans from then till now.
Right.
It's a very interesting and very sad book. After reading it, did I realize that not only was I, a college graduate, really grossly uninformed of the goings-on, but also the ongoing results. And so I felt like putting that sign up was a way of introducing people like me who just missed it somehow. I think he's gravely ill. I'd be surprised if he's...
Leonard, right.
Yeah.
He's still in prison.
And of course, Peter died maybe 5 years ago now.
You were very close to Peter, weren't you?
I can't say I was close, but I think that I was... struck by him and his
How so?
authority on the natural world,
Okay.
his ability to observe the natural world and put it in words that could, I'd hope, make people hear, much like my other neighbor on the other side, Kurt Vonnegut. But so I think I was impressed by Peter Matheson and inspired by his passion for saving something of what we have, and maybe looking harder at what we've destroyed. So, yeah, in short, that's why I put the sign up. Yeah.
And not far from your farm is a residence, and
Yeah.
it's not the only one, of course, that you see what has been destroyed. And of course, you remember the land pre.
Which one?
Well, we're talking about Rennert's estate.
Yeah,
there.
that's a large one.
A
for
large
sure.
one. So
yeah.
when you see that, what do you feel? What do you?
Well, actually, his development is in keeping with some of the industrialists that would have come there in, even the early 1900s. Very large estates, very contained. Doesn't, as you know, I've never seen really him.
Right. We think he exists behind.
Yeah,
it.
I'm pretty sure he exists.
Okay.
It's an enormous place. We did used to farm it. We never owned it, but we did farm it.
Wow.
We farmed as farmers went out of production for a variety of reasons. During the 70s and 80s, our farm was expanding. We were picking up older farmland that as retired or died.
Right.
So really in the mid 90s, when we were farming Rennert's Piece, right up to the time he purchased it. We call it Rennert's Piece.
I didn't know that.
It's part of a farm that was called the Roselle Farm. And it was sold because of estate tax. It's very, like we go on and on.
Well, I know. It tells a little, how did the NAFTA in 1994 affect your farming?
Specifically potatoes in the Northeast.
Okay.
And maybe even specifically Long Island.
Right.
Why?
So what happened to your economic situation as a result of that? Because you were doing a lot of business with Puerto Rico then?
Our potatoes were mainly packed for the Caribbean. So when you look at
that
my
beautiful
spot,
beautiful spot,
sky. That's really stunning. It's hard to believe it. Probably that view probably does not exist today. But
don't say that.
I know.
Yes, it does. It does in our mind, in our imagination.
I'm trying quickly to figure out exactly where that is. It's funny. I mean, I know by the heart. Yeah, it's an older picture. I think that's actually taken in. It's probably Amagansett. We used to farm as far from Sagaponack as Amagansett.
Wow.
And again, pre-NAFTA. So in short, what NAFTA did was change the relationship we had with large buyers in Puerto Rico, because it made specifically Prince Edward Island more competitive in the American marketplace. And so just cost of production, cost of shipping, we're out on the east end of Long Island. We pretty quickly couldn't compete with the additional Canadian import. And that was that in a way. And so after that took place, we tried to pivot to a more domestic marketplace, but you figured there's already farms feeding that domestic, permanently. And so it wasn't until, so we kind of bumped along, and then the Atkins diet came, and that was, again, very bad for potatoes. But then just over the years, people have really changed the way they eat. So potatoes would be what we ate all winter long. But in the past 30 years with global shipping, you can now choose between asparagus, any number of vegetables, whereas potatoes used to be a staple.
So that's why
we don't need them anymore.
Right. So you've diversified and been creative in that way. Now, and also now you're in the vodka business. You've got a distillery. And how did that come about?
Yeah. So it was the continuing evolution of a farm on the east end of Long Island. But largely we had always talked about, wouldn't that be interesting and fun to make potato vodka one day? Even when we were kids, before we were of legal drinking age, we knew it would be a fantasy. I think it was in 2012 that Cuomo made it possible for a farm distillery, just like you can have a farm winery. And so we immediately moved forward with that, just because we knew that the available acreage. You need a lot of acres to raise potatoes. The available acreage was shrinking. The cost of production was going up. And so we decided to take essentially a value-added path. We still do raise potatoes commercially, but we're under 100 acres now, and that's down from about 400 at our largest.
I don't know if you remember, it was a few years ago, I took a couple of bags of the chips to Zabar's.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly sure what happened.
You took potato chips or
I took
potatoes?
the potato chips.
Yeah, yeah.
To see if they would like to
Yeah,
have it at
yeah.
the
Yeah.
food
So
store.
they get a lot of my tomatoes during the summer.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't wholesale the potato chips.
Right, okay. Well,
Yeah.
that nothing ever happened. But
Yeah,
I was just,
yeah.
because I love all your stuff. And
Yeah,
it's just
thanks.
unbelievably delicious.
It is
But
good.
again, foremost, you are a farmer. This is not about, you're trying to be creative and use your imagination to save the resources and to be a steward of the land. That's at your heart and soul, and it's so obvious.
Yeah.
You must have a tremendous amount of ambivalence seeing the beauty there alongside the development and again, it's such a friendly stand and so on, and you have so many people coming there in the summer. I mean, it's a treat to just stand around and hear what people say.
Yeah.
So you've got to, how do you try to deal with that ambivalence?
You mean, how am I not really sad?
Well, I mean, you need these people, and that's and yet they are part of. And they're look, we're not dumping on anybody here. I mean, they're trying. They want to enjoy the beauty too. So we're all grappling with how do we enjoy that without destroying the land.
I have some good ideas.
Tell us, please.
But I don't
the
think
battle for the Hamptons
but I don't
and the
think,
world.
I don't think anybody's really interested.
We're interested.
Yeah, well,
our audience is interested.
One of the things is land use and house size. And unfortunately, and I have this conversation with various architects that I might meet is
You don't? Or
I do have this conversation
good.
because I'm very curious about it.
Yeah.
So most architects go through extensive training, learning how to design and accommodate somebody who wants a home. But I also feel that just like when I'm a farmer, I'm out there with my experiencing my environment and augmenting my practices if I see environmental issues ahead. And as you said, being a steward. So I ask my architect friends, why when somebody comes to you and they want to build a home, can't you discuss with them their real needs of the home and the scale of the home? It's a scale thing. It's not that people shouldn't be able to have their home in the Hamptons, but what we are building there are not homes. We're building it's pretty much from one edge of the property to the other, a massive disruption. And I realize to a degree, farming's a seasonal disruption of your soil layers and all the other things that live there. But agriculture's a living thing. I'm host to things that are then in turn host to things and that are eating things. Largely, I mean, there are more organic practices that are going into these estates, but they're largely static properties. They're highly controlled. And I just don't believe it's the best long-term use of the land. Just that level of building. There's so much.
So what do the architects tell you? When
They
you ask
say,
them?
well, sorry, Marilee, but if I don't design a house that they want, they're just on to the next architect. And so then I said, well, why do we have institutions that give you some authority, or should give you some authority, and
to regulate?
Or to just moderate.
Moderate, yeah, okay.
or come up with ideas. And
why not?
But so I sort of joke about having some ideas because I don't think that they're really ones that people are interested in. I think that a large home signifies something for people. But people are interested. Yeah, some.
They see it. Some do.
Yeah.
Many do.
I go back to the book, The Great Gatsby. I don't think enough people read it as a tragedy. I think they read it as something to aspire to. And you'll hear people say this in the Hamptons a lot. Oh, that's so Gatsby. That's so like their big homes. And I think, wasn't he floating in the swimming pool at the end or something very bad like that? So that's sort of grim. But honestly, I see that story as sort of a tale of what wealth can do to the inner workings of happiness.
Self-destructiveness
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
individual
Yeah,
and the environment.
yeah. So
We're on a
Yeah.
very destructive path. And
but let's bring it back up.
it doesn't bring it. Yes, no. We show a
Yeah,
couple more shots
yeah,
of the
yeah,
farmstead. But no, there are people out there who
Yeah.
are getting this. I'm over in East End. When you cross town line, correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't seem like there are as expansive McMansions in the States
Yeah.
there. Is it that
Yeah.
the
Well,
politicians are more careful? No. All right.
So we have on the east end of Long Island, honestly, some of the oldest and best tools for land preservation. But it's just they coexist with some of the greatest desires for large open tract, development.
There's organization, land preservation. What are they called?
So Suffolk County came up with the
Right.
first idea to basically portion off property that you could remove the development rights from a piece of property and therefore preserve the land without traditional development rights. And there's many sort of rights now that can be removed from property and therefore get closer to
the land itself
the
before
land
it's
itself.
built on.
Right. So my family, for example, utilizing something, and for farm families, it's usually estate planning that gets them into this, but we removed development rights from over 100 acres of our property in Sagaponack, meaning that it might have greenhouses on it, it might have agricultural buildings on it, but the 100 acres itself will remain farmland for as long as there are farmers there.
And wildlife preserves, is that part of the?
So I think there are certainly some within Sagaponack, but we're just about at build out there, meaning the subdivisions that are there, if they're not active, they are waiting to be active. Probably what remains of wildlife there is either in the unfenced farm fields, which is another debate, and are, again, Sag Swamp and the little ditch rows that still exist between farm fields. There are some small parks, but not a lot. And the beaches, the wetlands that surround some of our beaches are substantial.
How are the beaches doing?
From an
The
erosion standpoint?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what is happening in terms of?
It depends
that
who you
and
talk
the
to.
Climate change. Yeah.
Yeah. So in Sagaponack, a group of wealthy, large homes on the ocean front about 10 years ago put a dredge out in the ocean and put up a lot of sand on Sag Main Beach. It was all from Bridgehampton pretty much to East Hampton. It was a substantial amount of work was done. And they definitely built that beach. But every year...
With private funds?
Yeah, well, no, they
With the
created a taxation district
Okay.
among themselves. So they agreed that they essentially, as beachfront property owners, that they would experience a tax hike just to pay for this dredging. And there was a grant, I think, from the state, but it was really, so that's why there's maybe contention about whose beach it is. But
And who can even walk
but
there.
obviously,
Yeah.
they are public beaches.
public beach,
there.
right.
Yeah.
And the windmill, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
But so at any rate, I mean, so further west, Hampton Bays just had a breach in some of the last nor'easters we've had. In general, there's a lot of opinions about beachfront building, but I feel that I've been in Sagaponack long enough, and there are a few areas where there are not large developments on the beachfront. And my personal opinion is the extensive use of beachfront as permanent housing actually exacerbates the erosion. Yeah.
So you're not all that pessimistic, are you? Right?
No.
Okay.
I'm not pessimistic because I think things change.
'Cause we can't be.
Yeah, and things change, and probably some of it's really, I think group efforts can make a difference, but I think some things are really truly beyond our control. Yeah.
Look at this.
Right.
Betting the
That's fun.
And I got to tell you this.
Yeah.
I'm betting on you
Yeah.
and the farm
Yeah.
over all these estates.
Yeah.
Okay? My money is on you.
Yeah.
So what is this now? Oh, and here's your brother, right? And here you are in...
Right.
Where are you
Proud
here?
vodka farmers.
Okay, Proud Vodka
So
farmers.
we're in front of, one of our main storage barns that traditionally we'd have about 100 tractor trailers of potatoes in storage that we
Wow.
would sell from pretty much the end of October, sometimes right up to when we'd be planting again in the spring. So that's you're moving them back out of storage into the market, and so yeah.
And there's your doggy, right?
And that's Bird.
Bird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We don't farm that many potatoes anymore, so a lot of them are going into vodka now.
But every time I go to the stand, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we talk, and there's a bunch of people there, and you go driving off to something or other, and then bring back a whole bunch of wonderful things. So
Yeah.
where are you going there? You're getting more onions and whatever.
We're going to Cinderella.
You're going to Cinderella.
No,
No,
but we joke that. So actually,
Yeah.
most of our farm fields are very close to our home farm. So I'm usually, if I'm going out to a quarter mile up the road or down the road,
I see.
to get whatever it might be that's in need. Yeah.
And now, okay, I haven't. When is this going to happen? Are you going to have the bottles of vodka
Yeah.
out there?
Yeah,
when is
so
that going to happen?
it is happening.
Okay.
It's a whole new line of work for us. It's very interesting. But we built a farm distillery, and that's about 2 miles from our actual home farm. We purchased, actually, when we sold our development rights, we agreed as a family that the only thing we wanted to buy with that money, if possible, would be more farmland. And things crossed that there was an old farmstead up the road on the market in the subdivision process. We made them an offer, and so we purchased that farmstead and then got to work on developing our distillery. And it took about 4 years in the approval process with a lot, there's a lot that had to be done and changed about the actual property, and we opened to the public last weekend.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm getting out there.
Yeah.
The 29th, actually.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's another picture.
Yeah,
Of it. Okay.
yeah. So that's actually, I'm in the distillery right there.
Wow.
I am not the distiller.
Right, you've got a partner
I'm
for
working
that,
in
right.
I'm working in the field, so I'm growing botanicals and obviously helping with the other law.
Sagaponic Farm Distillery. is
Yeah,
it?
we just named it what it was.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. You come from a long line of devoted, idealistic people here who are tenacious. Tell us about your father and mother.
Right. So,
I mean, what did
very
they instill
interesting.
in you? What did? No pun
Yeah,
intended there.
yeah.
But really, I mean, what are the values? The funny thing, if your father didn't have some potatoes for dinner, I mean, it wasn't really.
There was no dinner.
No
Yeah,
dinner,
there was
right?
no dinner.
Not potato.
Yeah.
But what did they give you
Yeah.
that so many other people are not getting as they go out and whatever?
Yeah. Well, in some ways, it's unfair, right? So, I mean, it's not unfair. We just feel very lucky. Less than 2% of the population is actually on a farm now, right? So way less than that. So, not that
In the United
many.
States.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the experience I could have growing up on a farm is going to, again, there's that word, instill me with certain sensitivities that other people will never even have access to because they might live in a suburban environment.
And have no
And just
history or
not
memory
right.
of it, or no experience.
But that is the change. So if even if you're reading something that was written 30 years ago, you might come up. There might be metaphorical information they use agricultural terminology metaphorically. Now you really don't even see that anymore. And I'm sorry, I'm not even thinking of one as I use that.
No,
but it's
I understand.
It's kind of gone from, in some ways, our cultural consciousness. I think there's a reawakening of it. There's a lot of smaller farms, even in my area, smaller farms starting up on some of the preserved land there. And I think they're doing a good job to heighten the awareness of, how precious this resource is, how important a regional food supply is.
Yeah.
And that's why I am optimistic, I think.
I am
Yeah.
too. And
Yeah.
and the North Fork, there's less of that development going on, relatively speaking.
I've told you my joke, which somebody had the bumper sticker, "Don't South Fork the North Fork."
Sorry.
And, that's sort of a message to the people, the planners. But it's also, if agriculture is making a lot of money, nobody's going to sell their farm. But if real estate is paying more than agriculture, it's a realistic financial decision that people have to make. Owning farmland can be actually a tax liability because its underlying value is
Right.
is beyond what it can produce.
So you're going to have this conversation, this narrative, with not only the architects, but the developers, the politicians. Well, what are you thinking? No, I mean, there's got to be pushback. There's got to be, and you're resisting by example. I understand.
Exactly.
Right.
That would probably be, that's probably the accurate way to say it.
And
yeah, but I think that it's something people, have to decide for themselves.
Are you working with the Shinnecock?
I don't have any. I did a writing workshop a few years ago where I met some people that part of the tribe there, but they've had an interesting go around this last summer with erecting the monolith advertising post, which I think is actually really interesting and
Really?
though it looks inappropriate, I think it's
It does.
appropriate.
Okay.
I think it continues the dialogue in a really God damn it kind of way.
Okay, I'm going to take more of a look at that as I drive by.
Yeah.
But the other thing, because we could talk about this more, I did a benefit with Reverend William Barber, Poor People's Campaign, last summer, a couple of summers ago. And there were representatives from the Shinnecock Nation there too, as well, and Peter Yarrow and so. And so maybe what we can do is have some sort of benefit event on the farm there to raise consciousness and to help people in their endeavors to resist. And again, I think you put it very well, showing a positive alternative, which feels really great and good. That's what we come out there.
Yeah.
And listen, no, I'm not trying to keep knocking on poor old Ira here, but damn it, that's why Ira came out.
It's going to be a really big hotel.
No. Okay. Well, I mean, come on, Ira. You're 85 here. You can do something about this.
Yeah.
You could check Long's Lane, where I'm closer to.
In East Hampton.
In East Hampton, right?
Yeah.
That I heard that was going to be all subdivided, but they sort of saved that, right?
So Long Lane in East Hampton.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a very early purchase for the CPF, and so now there's Eco Farm, which is small community plots that people rent, and then there's a larger farming program, I believe, with a balance of the land. Yeah.
And that wonderful Iacana chicken farm, he's
Yeah.
still there.
Yeah.
And he's passed on, but wife has taken over, and she's been looking out in the fields for 40 years.
Yeah.
So on that positive note,
there are strong farming
Marilee,
institutions on Long
absolutely.
Island. Yeah.
And in the 30 seconds we have, how do people reach you?
How do they reach me?
Well, I mean, how do we get in touch with you, or well, you just go down Sag Main, right?
Yeah,
and you'll see. But
I'm not a big social media presence.
Good. Okay,
Right.
so don't reach you.
Right.
Just come on by at some point, and Marilee, it's been an honor and a treat.
Yeah.
You are fantastic. We are betting the family farm on you. I really mean it.
Thank you.
You're what this show is all about, and thank you so very, very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Again.
Thank you.
Okay. So we are now going to go to our second segment with Judy Stillman, and we're going to have a short clip, I Cherish Women. So I cherish women on the farm, and we're going to be talking to Judy Stillman in just a few minutes. We're going to play her short clip right now.
I treat women with respect, and women have respect for me.
Fat pig.
The face of a dog. Bad breast jobs. She's a slob.
Miss Piggy.
Miss Housekeeping.
An eating
machine.
Blood coming out of her wherever.
ugly,
degenerate,
Dumb.
unattractive bimbo. Putting a wife to work is a very dangerous thing.
a nasty woman.
They'll flip their panties. You have to treat them like
She's disgusting.
an imbecile.
A total failure.
It must be a pretty picture. You dropping to your knees.
Grab him by the
Grab him by the
Grab him by the
grab him by the Nobody has more respect for women than I do.
These are all words spoken by the 45th President of the United States of America.
Ce sont tous les mots parlés par le 45e président des États-Unis.
ये हैं लफ्ज़ जो अमेरिका का 45 सदर कहता है.
Ino tamame kalamote jehelo panjom raisa jumhore emrikost.
Todas estas son palabras dichas por el presidente de los Estados Unidos número 45.
Это были слова, произнесенные 45-м президентом Соединенных Штатов Америки.
I Cherish Women by Judith Lynn Stillman.
Hi, Jim.
Artist in residence at Rhode Island College, professor of music, composer, international pianist, choral director, you name it, working with Wynton Marsalis,
Thanks, Jim.
accompanist.
Appreciate your time. I feel like there are,
We got so much to talk about. Yes, and your interest in music and art and connection to social justice. Tell us, especially on this day, as you'll explain, why this is so very important, and this other clip that we're going to be playing in a few minutes. Tell us a little about
So
what
there
you're trying
are,
to do here.
yeah, various ways to address, I think, the challenges that society is facing. And I believe in the magic of the transformative power of the arts. So I think that the mantra that kind of has inspired me to create these kinds of videos is really what Kenneth Rexroth said. He was the poet, and he said, against the ruin of the world, there's only one defense, the creative act. So we've tried to kind of give viewers a visceral experience of what we might think or hear about on the news, talk about intellectually, but these women are cycling through the stages of grief that they experienced when they heard these words. So we basically put our unwitting lyricist, who happens to be Donald Trump,
These are all quotes from him.
all quote into the voices of women, and they cycle through really the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross stages of grief. You heard denial, anger,
Really?
depression, but we never reach acceptance. And well, yes, it is serendipitous that you're playing the clip today as we kind of think about the notion of, holding Donald Trump accountable for abuse of power. Here we try to hold him accountable for abuse of language.
Right.
And this was our antidote to fake news.
And so you've been working on your connection between music and social justice for a while now.
For a while, yes.
And how did you
Well,
get interested in
first
this?
of all, I want to just talk about sort of my connection to music
Sure.
and words, because that goes way back. And since your previous guest sort of had a whole history of generations that inspired her, my mother and grandmother were opera singers, and they used to sing to me. And some of I always had this sense of connection of music and words, music and lyrics. So they would sing Gilbert and Sullivan. They would sing operetta, early, you know, maybe Italian opera buffa. And this notion of words and music, even when I'm playing a Beethoven sonata, I have a sense of a narrative. So,
and these again are women voices. These are your mother and grandmother?
That's right. They're
so
women's
speaking
voices,
to
so
you
that was
through
quite
the
natural
generations.
for me. And in the next video, which is in a very different style, it's not choral at all. As you know, because you've heard it, it's a little bit, you know, a little bit more in the sort of genre of hip hop, loosely. Again, because I was so attracted to the notion of patter and lyrics and syllables and quick rhythms and rhymes, it felt very natural to me to write that.
A similar theme, though, in a sense.
A similar theme.
Woman's place is in the house.
A woman's place is in the house, and because I think we have cause for celebration of the 36 new women in the house, in the other house.
and Judy, we're going to play the full clip here in just a few seconds, and then we're going to do an entire show with you in the weeks to come.
I look forward to that.
So we look forward to that as well. But we're going to now play this clip. Women's place is in the house.
Women's place is in the house. We really want to underscore the significant impact of women in politics.
The need for that, to change the narrative, to have a radical imagination of what a new world can be like.
And to empower and enlighten and all those good E-words. And thank you so much for your time.
We're going to have you on again very soon.
I look forward to it.
And thank you so very, very much for watching The Radical Imagination. Thank you, Zenaida, Carla, Freddie, and Tiffany for all the help and love and patience you've had this year. We wish you all the very best of New Year's. We'll see you again in the new year. Thank you for watching The Radical Imagination.
Is in the house. A woman's place is in the house. A woman's place is in the house. A woman's place is in the house. Count the new women in the house, 36, that's good, cause there's a lot to fix. Count the new women in the house, 36, that's good, cause there's a lot to fix. Count the new women in the house, 36, that's good, cause there's a lot to fix. Revamping the old boys club on Capitol Hill, it's the people's will. Deal with guns that kill, prescription pills, using their skills for federal bills, not waiting until or sitting still for society's ills. They're pioneers, exploring frontiers with power careers, advancing us by leap years. Ayanna Pressley and Lori Trahan lend their voices to democratic choices by public opinion, establishing their dominion.
This is about resisting hate. But we will not only resist, we must progress.
Cindy Axney and Abby Finkenauer bring to the table women power.
They took the oath, the world stirred, making their voices heard. Remaining undeterred, seats transferred in our nation's theater of the absurd.
The attack on the American dream is the nation's biggest crisis.
Ocasio-Cortez put people above party. Her victory, real hardy. Only 29 crossed the finish line. Red lipstick, hoop earrings, tough questions at hearings. Stand up for what's right, providing House oversight. Puts them through the ringer with zinger after zinger. No cutting slack, holding back. Illusions about collusion.
Why was the bank involved in the caging of children?
Raised by a single mom, Angie Craig. Now she's reversing the patriarchal plague.
What's going on at the border? Fact-checking, a new narrative's taking hold. No home wrecking, outspoken and bold. What's going on at the border? A new pecking order. No supporter of walls, bricks, mortar. Escort her, don't deport her. Take off the blindfold. With determination and grit, so chill toward us small. We'll be making sure there's no hope to build that wall.
I'm very excited to be part of making history. Sending 4 women to Congress from Pennsylvania is a pretty awesome thing.
Houlihan, Scanlon, Dean, and Wild, talents compiled.
Show broader solidarity, no more disparity, giving clarity to the Keystone State. Politicians, first rate in the Me Too, turning blue, join the crew. Watch what you say and do. Error!
Truth matters, truth matters, truth matters.
Sharice Davids, Native woman in Congress. No muss, no fuss, no more them versus us. She's off the charts in the mixed martial arts. Rashida Tlaib swore in on her Quran. No head coverings in Congress, gone. Hijabs and yarmulkes now allowed. Ilhan Omar sporting a hijab, proud. Endorsed by peers. First time in 181 years.
One of the most important things we can do is educate the public.
Veronica Escobar and Sylvia Garcia, first two Texan Latinas, believers in permanent legal status for DACA dreamers.
The first two Latinas to be elected to Congress from the great state of Texas.
Curbelo threw in the towel to Debbie Mucarcel Powell. First-gen American immigrant from Ecuador, supports the poor and guns no more.
Haley Stevens in a battleground election. Policies for people, afford and protection.
Mikey Sherrill, Navy pilot for a decade. A lot of courage displayed. Was a prosecutor? Has power to persuade.
One thing I loved about flying a Navy helicopter, it gives you perspective.
Deb Holland, Laguna Pueblo edition, establishes America's new tradition. Indigenous women in leadership positions. Oppression for centuries not meant to be. Rhetoric invalidating identity. Finally placed in a governmental entity.
Our win is a victory for working people, a victory for women, a victory for Indian country.
Carol Miller, lone new Republican woman, opposes the liberal agenda. Find it hard to defend her? Even if her beliefs are a mystery to me, she's also making history. Times are tough, families struggling, tensions constantly rising. Democrats now rule the House, the parties need some compromising. Katie Porter cares about fair taxation and a healthy environment for our nation.
America was built on courage, on imagination, and an unbeatable determination.
Colleagues galvanized by frustration, and Kirkpatrick urges bipartisan legislation. She knows the art of mediation, don't need to go to the mat. Her parents were Republican and Democrat. Abigail Spanberger, unseated David Bratt. She's former CIA, what do you think of that? Wanted to clamp down on the shutdown before we broke down in the capital town.
I always knew I wanted to join the CIA. I always wanted to be one of the good guys.
Alyssa Slotkin from Columbia and Cornell, also former CIA, no doubt you'll give him hell. Elaine Luria served her country for 20 years, operating nuclear reactors with other engineers. Katie Hill cares about the common good, so does former nurse Lauren Underwood.
We literally can do anything.
Jennifer Wexton hopes to cure the opioid epidemic. She knows the substance abuse crisis is systemic. Flipping her district to blue, Kendra Horn, her platform, authenticity is born.
Kim Schreier, from immigrants descended, a close race, but Rossi was appended.
Lizzie Fletcher, committed to her city. The primary was pretty gritty. Backed by the DCC committee, she prevailed. Culbertson failed.
We are the party of family values because we value all types of family.
Susie Lee from working class roots. Now her pursuits include tackling student debt, but she won't forget job training, even though she's done campaigning.
Donna Shalala, former college president at age 77, congressional resident.
Johanna Hayes asked her supporters, can you believe that we are here? Connecticut's first black congresswoman, National Teacher of the Year. Speaks truth to power, no ivory tower. Now allow her to kill discrimination, fight for public education, build the nation.
Not only am I built for this, I'm Grass City built for it.
Lucy McBath's son killed by a gun, would like to make sure he's the last one.
I'm the mother of a young man who was shot down and killed.
Help me and your father to make the changes necessary to make our world a little bit safer.
If we really treat each other with respect
and listen to each other and live up to our values, there's nothing we can't do.
It's a new congressional generation looking more like the U.S. population. It's a new congressional generation looking more like the U.S. population. It's a new congressional generation looking more like the U.S. population. There were no tricks, you skeptics. Ain't no picnic, just conflicts and lunatics. It's politics. Who predicts? Count the new women in the House, 36. That's good, cause there's a lot to fix. 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 That's good, cause there's a lot to fix.